The dreadnought hung in the dark, a black spear tip against a scatter of indifferent stars. Inside its command hall, Admiral Saraxis lounged on a throne-like chair built of bone-white alloy, the posture of a predator with no reason to rise. The room smelled faintly of scorched ozone, residue from the orbital bombardment of a human colony hours earlier. The fire still burned on the surface below, a smear of orange visible through the vast viewing panels. His officers gathered in quiet clusters, exchanging data slates, laughing without mirth. None of them looked concerned. Why would they? The war with Earth's children had become a tedious routine. Saraxis tapped a clawed finger on the chair's arm and exhaled in irritation. "Another nest broken," Commander Vale muttered as he strode across the hall. His armor still bore scorch marks, his voice carrying a boredom that stung sharper than contempt. "They fight like vermin. Scatter, Nash, then silence. No challenge left." Saraxis' thin lips curved into a half-smile. "Perhaps vermin is too kind. At least vermin survive." The hall rippled with quiet laughter. They spoke not as conquerors in the middle of war, but as aristocrats bored with theater. On the surface below, the colony's last transmission was nothing more than a crackle before vanishing into silence. No defiance. No cries. Just another smudge to be catalogued, stripped, and forgotten. The Admiral's eyes drifted to the stars beyond. A faint itch nagged at the back of his mind, but he crushed it quickly. Doubt was a disease. "Reports," he demanded. Sensors Officer Lyron stepped forward, a creature younger than the rest, voice steadier than his pale hands. "Long-range array detected. Something. Passing beyond the outer drift. Too fast for full lock. No transponder, no signal." The words hung, strange in their ambiguity. Saraxis leaned forward slightly. "Too fast." "Yes, Admiral. Faster than registry sweep. Our systems cannot hold its trajectory. One moment it was there. Then gone." A murmur stirred the hall. Empire scanners were infallible. At least they were supposed to be. Vale barked a dismissive laugh. "Space debris. Perhaps a broken human vessel flailing on some unstable drive. Shall we chase ghosts, then?" The Admiral's jaw flexed, his smile thinning. "Nothing moves without identity. No ID. No signal. No origin. I do not believe in ghosts." His tone was ice over steel. "Where was it last tracked?" The officer displayed a projection, a shifting blur of light crossing the edge of mapped human space. No clear path, no consistency. A thing moving with the rhythm of intention, but the signature of nothing. For the first time that day, Saraxis Hall went quiet. He stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow over the chamber. "Plot diversion course. We investigate." Some of the staff shifted uneasily. Vale tilted his head, expression mocking. "We abandon celebration to chase a phantom." The Admiral's stare silenced him. "Do you think war is won by lounging? Empires fall when arrogance blinds them. If the humans have birthed something new, I will see it with my own eyes." Lyron's throat tightened, but he spoke. "Admiral, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." It moved with deliberation, as if it knew we watched. "That should not be possible." The Admiral's smile returned, sharp as broken glass. "Then perhaps we are finally offered sport." He dismissed the hall. Officers bowed, boots clanging on the metallic floor. The sound echoed like the tolling of a bell, fading into corridors where soldiers boasted of plunder, where laughter masked unease. Saraxis remained behind, gaze fixed on the smoldering planet below. The colony's surface broke apart under the relentless firestorms his fleet had unleashed. Yet as he watched, he felt no triumph. Only a gnawing hollowness, a whisper that victory had grown tasteless. What good was conquest if the prey no longer screamed? He clenched a hand until the bones cracked against his palm. No matter. This strange object would break the monotony. Perhaps it would bleed. Perhaps it would burn. The lights dimmed, leaving the viewing panels as the sole glow in the hall. Stars scattered endless and cold. Somewhere among them, something had dared to move faster than the Empire could track. Saraxis whispered to himself, a vow as much as a promise. "I will find you." And for the first time in many campaigns, the silence that followed felt less like victory and more like waiting. Would you like me to continue directly with Section 2 in the same cinematic style, or would you prefer me to expand this section to the full 1,200 words with deeper character interplay and tension? Right now this draft is 850 words. The unmarked station floated against the dark like a forgotten relic, its structure half collapsed, panels missing, beacon lights extinguished long ago. The Empire fleet approached with the indifference of predators circling a wounded animal. On the bridge of the dreadnought, Admiral Saraxis leaned forward, his gaze cool, his hand resting against his jaw as the derelict grew larger in the viewing panel. Commander Vale smirked at the sight. Pathetic. Another colony pretending at secrecy. They think if they switch off the lights, they vanish. His tone was drenched in amusement, a cruel amusement meant to entertain the crew. Lyran, younger than most and still careful with words, shifted uneasily. Its power signature is faint but deliberate, Admiral. Too neat for decay. It could be intentional. Vale barked a laugh. Intentional. This is rubble, not strategy. You see ghosts in every shadow. Saraxis silenced them both with a raised hand. His eyes narrowed. The station looked dead, yet its silence rang too loudly. He had lived long enough to know prey sometimes waited with sharpened teeth, hidden. Still, arrogance tugged at him. Humans had never proven clever enough to lay traps that mattered. Proceed, he ordered. The fleet advanced in formation, dreadnoughts flanking frigates, each weapon array primed. The silence from the station was total. No distress call, no defensive signals. When the first salvo struck, it tore through the outer shell with embarrassing ease. Chunks of debris spiraled outward, scattering like dust. The crew laughed, their voices filling the bridge with cruel relief. Barely worth the fuel, Vale sneered. But Saraxis did not laugh. His gaze stayed fixed, his instincts scratching. Something felt too clean. Then the station fractured, deliberately. The pieces did not drift apart randomly, but unfolded, mechanical joints hissing to life as if the entire ruin had been built for this moment. Spherical cores, dormant a breath ago, pulsed with light before shattering into bursts of electromagnetic fire. The dreadnought's lights flickered. Consoles crackled. A sudden silence fell over the command hall as displays died, one after another, only to reignite with fractured data. EMP surge, originating from the station. Lyran shouted, his voice cracking with disbelief. Not random, it's coordinated. A tremor passed through the ship as drives faltered, half the fleet lurching sideways, engines choking. The stars outside bent wrong for an instant as a ripple spread across space, the faint outline of a collapsing wormhole echoing near the fleet's center. It wasn't a trap in the sense Saraxis expected. It was worse. Status, he barked. Drive capacity reduced by 60%, someone shouted. Weapons offline across 3 cruisers, shield harmonics unstable. The laughter was gone. Fear replaced it, crawling through the crew like frost. Saraxis rose to his full height, his presence filling the hall like gravity itself. Stabilize. Regain systems. Do not panic. His tone was calm, deliberate, a blade drawn slowly, not flung wildly. Vale's smirk had vanished, replaced by a tightness around his mouth. This is not human design. It cannot be. But Lyran, pale and trembling, whispered the truth. It is. They wanted us here. The Admiral turned his gaze on him, unreadable. The boy's fear mirrored the gnawing in Saraxis' own gut, though he would never admit it. Before Saraxis could reply, the comms snapped alive. A voice spoke in perfect clarity, smooth and calm, as though the speaker had been waiting all along. You should not have come here. Every officer froze. The voice was human, unmistakably human, but it carried no panic, no desperation. Only calm certainty. This was never a colony. This was a marker. The words struck like iron on glass, ringing through the bridge with terrible simplicity. Leave now or history repeats itself on you this time. Static swallowed the channel. No origin, no signature. The silence that followed was suffocating. Saraxis officers shifted, eyes wide, breaths shallow. No human voice had ever spoken to them this way. Not pleading, not broken, but certain. Vale's voice rasped, too loud in the quiet. It's a bluff. A desperate cry from vermin. But Saraxis did not answer him immediately. His mind churned, calculating. The humans had played dead. They had let the Empire believe them weak, scattered, inconsequential. Yet here was proof of preparation. Decades? Centuries? He didn't know. His fingers curled against the cold metal of his chair. The calm in that voice unsettled him more than any explosion could. Humans had no right to sound that confident. Admiral, Lyran whispered, breaking the silence, They knew we would come. Saraxis' eyes narrowed, his thoughts heavy with a recognition he refused to voice. Something had shifted in the war, perhaps in history itself. He let the silence linger, feeding the fear in his crew, before finally speaking. Signal the fleet. Full systems recovery. We are not prey to be toyed with. The words steadied some, but not all. Unease lingered, a shadow stretching across every face. Saraxis remained standing, staring into the void where the object had first been seen, where the signal had spoken. His expression betrayed nothing, but within, a whisper pressed against the walls of his mind. This was no phantom. This was intent. And intent, he knew, was always the beginning of war. The wreckage field stretched in a ring around the Empire fleet, fragments of the bait station still smoldering in the void. The ships drifted half-blind, their drives coughing back to life in fits, shields stuttering against the unseen radiation cloud. On the bridge of the dreadnought, Admiral Saraxis stood silent, eyes fixed on the fractured displays that blinked warnings in red. The calm voice of the human transmission still echoed in his skull, refusing to fade. It hadn't been a cry for mercy, not even a challenge. It had been a pronouncement, cool and absolute, as though history itself had already been written. Commander Vale tried to reclaim the air with bluster. Reroute power from life support to the cannons. We'll scour this region until we find the transmitter. They think to frighten us with words. He spat the last sentence, though the effort of his sneer was betrayed by the stiffness of his shoulders. Lyran, pale, kept his eyes on the tactical overlay. Admiral, scans show something else. Multiple signals, faint, layered. I can't lock on. They vanish before I can trace. His hands trembled slightly, betraying both fear and awe. It's as if they know where we look, before we even search. Saraxis finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. They are not hiding from us. They are showing us only what they choose. The bridge went quiet. The crew exchanged glances, but no one dared contradict him. For decades, the humans had been nothing but prey, colonies falling with ease, their fleets scattered like sand in a storm. Yet now, with one shattered station and one calm voice, the prey no longer resembled prey. The dreadnought shuddered. Alarms shrieked across the hall as something vast slipped into real space off their starboard flank. No warp signature preceded it. No drive wake, no ripple of approach. It was simply there, as if space itself had chosen to manifest a predator at their side. The vessel was angular, sleek, built for silence rather than grandeur. Its surface shimmered with patterns that scrambled sensor returns, each panel absorbing scans like a black mirror. Weapons arrays unfolded, not with flourish, but with clinical inevitability. Human vessel. Lyran gasped. His voice cracked with disbelief. But Admiral, it's the size of one of ours. That should have been impossible. Humanity did not field dreadnoughts. Humanity was supposed to still be welding scraps together in orbital yards, centuries behind the Empire's engineering. Yet the evidence filled the viewing panels, a warship that shouldn't exist, gliding with the quiet poise of inevitability. Then came another, and another. Within moments, a dozen ships blinked into being, arranged in perfect silence around the crippled fleet. They made no demands, no threats. They did not broadcast warnings. They simply waited, weapons locked, formation precise. A calm chime rang. The human voice returned, calm as before. You are trespassing on restricted space. You will power down your weapons and surrender. Non-compliance will be answered in kind. The simplicity of it chilled more than any shouted ultimatum could have. Vale slammed his fist against the console. Insufferable vermin. They dare speak to us as equals. But Saraxis said nothing. His eyes studied the vessels, their movements. No hesitation. No wasted maneuver. Every detail bespoke discipline. These were not rebels cobbling ships together in secret. These were soldiers born of a long and brutal tradition. He knew because he had seen that look before, in his own kind long ago, when the Empire had still fought wars worth remembering. Admiral, whispered Lyran, if they had this strength all along, why hide it? Saraxis' mouth curled into something between a smile and a grimace. Because they were waiting, letting us grow complacent, letting us bleed their colonies, so when they finally showed their hand, we would already be deaf to caution. The younger officer swallowed hard. His unease shifted into something more dangerous, respect. Transmit back, Saraxis ordered. The comms officer hesitated. What message, Admiral? He paused, eyes narrowing. The words formed slowly, as though dragged from the weight of realization. Tell them we do not surrender. The bridge stiffened. Even Vale's bravado faltered. Refusal meant confrontation. Confrontation, in this moment, meant suicide. Before the transmission could be sent, the humans moved. No dramatic volley, no sweeping assault. Just 3 precise bursts of light that cut through space like surgical blades. Each struck an Empire cruiser at its engine core. Shields failed instantly. Fire bloomed silently in the void, and within seconds, 3 vessels were nothing but tumbling wreckage. The human voice returned unchanged. You are outmatched. This is your only warning. Vale's mouth opened to rage again, but Saraxis silenced him with a single look. The Admiral's jaw tightened. His mind was not on the battle now, but on the archives, the scattered fragments of human history the Empire had once catalogued and discarded as irrelevant. He remembered the images, trenches filled with mud and blood, the sky torn by artillery, soldiers charging machine guns with nothing but conviction. Cities leveled by bombs, entire populations annihilated in fire, and yet survivors crawling from the ashes to rebuild. Humans had waged war upon themselves for millennia with a savagery the Empire had long forgotten. He imagined them watching their history, shaping themselves, waiting for the day another empire came knocking. Not weakness, then. Preparation. Lyron's voice shook. Admiral, what are your orders? Saraxis turned his gaze to the human formation, those silent warships floating like executioners. For the first time in his long career, the weight of inevitability pressed against him. Fear coiled in his chest, not of death, but of recognition. The Empire had underestimated not an enemy, but a species. Stand down weapons, he said finally. The words scraped like stone from his throat. Not surrender, yet. Observation. The crew obeyed, hands moving with visible relief. Vale seethed but did not challenge him. The humans made no further move. They hovered, patient, watching. Saraxis knew this was no victory. It was a reprieve, offered deliberately. And that was worse, because it meant the humans were not rushing for conquest. They were measuring, testing, proving, and when they decided to strike in earnest, the Empire would not be ready. Saraxis stood in silence, staring into the void, his reflection cast against the viewing panel. For the first time, he felt old, not from years, but from irrelevance. History repeats itself, he murmured, recalling the message. But not on them this time. The stars beyond offered no comfort, only the quiet certainty that something greater had awakened, and the galaxy would not remain as it was. The council chamber of the Empire's core world was carved from obsidian, polished to a mirror sheen, built to intimidate lesser beings into silence. Tonight it reflected only unease. The high nobles and war ministers gathered in a circle, their robes trailing like shadows, their voices low with doubt. They spoke of resource strain, of dwindling morale, of the humans who had, impossibly, turned hunters into prey. Some called the incident a fabrication, others a minor ambush. Only one voice warned otherwise. Admiral Saraxis stood at the center, the flickering projection of Earth's rising fleets hovering behind him. He had shed his armor, appearing leaner, sharper, the wear of recent battles etched into his features. He did not shout. He did not need to. You saw what I saw, he said. Ships that should not exist. Weapons that crippled our finest fleet in seconds. Precision no animal mind could conjure. And the voice, calm, certain, unafraid. Do you not recognize what that means? An elder minister waved him off with contempt. Parlor tricks. The humans are clever rodents, nothing more. Do not cloak their desperation as genius. Saraxis' eyes narrowed. You call them rodents because it soothes you. I call them predators because it terrifies me. They have prepared for this moment for longer than we dared imagine. You laughed when they bled. You will not laugh when they strike. But his words fell into a silence of dismissal. No one admitted fear, though every face carried it. They were bound by arrogance, the same arrogance that had kept their empire stable for centuries. They ignored his warning. They always had. When the human offensive began, it was not with ceremony. No proclamation of war, no declaration of vengeance. Instead, wormholes bloomed silently across border sectors, space folding like paper as human fleets poured through in disciplined silence. Drones spearheaded the assaults, swarming with machine precision, cutting comms before alarm could spread. Empire stations went dark one by one, each conquered in minutes. Saraxis returned to his flagship in time to watch the collapse unfold. Reports streamed in, colonies gone, supply lines severed, defense grids compromised. The humans moved like water through cracks, never meeting strength head-on, always striking where confidence was weakest. Their fleets appeared where no fleet should be, as though space itself conspired with them. On the dreadnought bridge, Commander Vale paced like a caged beast, his bluster withered into frantic curses. They strike from nowhere. Every route they take is impossible. How do you fight what you cannot find? You study it, Saraxis answered, his tone grim but steady. His eyes remained locked on the tactical display, where red markers representing Empire worlds winked out in steady rhythm. You learn it before it learns you completely. Lyron hovered near the sensors, pale but resolute. He had grown in the weeks since that first ambush, fear hardening into something sharper. Admiral, they're not improvising. Every strike, every wormhole, they're calculated. They know us better than we know them. Saraxis allowed himself a thin smile. History is their tutor. They are children of endless wars, and we are the lesson they have been waiting to give. The dreadnought rocked suddenly, alarms howling. A human fleet had materialized at impossible proximity, as though drawn from thin air. Their formation was merciless, encircling, compressing, every weapon locked. The voice came again across the comms. Still calm, still unyielding. This is your final opportunity. Power down your arms. Resistance serves no purpose. Vale slammed his fist on the console. Never. We will burn you from the stars. His voice cracked, but pride forced him to stand tall. Saraxis looked at him, long and cold, and for once Vale flinched. Then the Admiral turned toward the stars, shoulders straightening. No, he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. We will not burn them. We will be burned by them, unless we choose differently. The human ships fired, not to annihilate, but to demonstrate. Beams of blinding light sheared past the dreadnought's hull, precise enough to shave armor without striking deeper. 3 destroyers beside them vanished in blossoms of flame, engines cored by pinpoint fire. The bridge crew trembled. The Admiral did not. He had seen enough battles to know when the outcome was already written. Cease weapons, Saraxis ordered. His voice cut through the chaos with a steel that could not be ignored. All batteries cold. For the first time in his life, Vale obeyed without argument. The dreadnought fell still. Across the void, so too did the human fleet. They had proven their point. The comm opened once more, and the voice spoke its final decree. Surrender and live. Resist and extinction follows. We will not warn again. The channel closed. The crew stared at Saraxis, waiting for his decision. Pride warred with survival inside his chest. He had been raised on Empire, trained to believe in its eternal supremacy. Yet here was the truth, laid bare by precision strikes and patient silence. Humanity had forced the mask of civilization aside and revealed the predator beneath. He bowed his head, not in defeat, but in recognition. Then he spoke with a calmness that silenced even the alarms. Signal surrender. Not as slaves, but as survivors. If we yield today, perhaps tomorrow we still breathe. Lyron exhaled, relief and sorrow mingled in his young face. Vale stood rigid, hatred burning, but impotent. The crew moved quickly, transmitting the signals, shutting down systems, laying the fleet bare. The humans did not gloat. They did not mock. They simply shifted formation, holding watch like patient sentinels. In the quiet that followed, Saraxis found himself laughing once, low and bitter. So this is how empires end, not in flames, but in silence, when another refuses to play our game. He looked at his reflection in the darkened panel, an old warrior staring back at him. For the first time in decades, he felt small. Not diminished, but humbled. Later, when the terms were delivered, Saraxis was offered something he did not expect. Not execution, not exile, but governance. Humanity sought not annihilation, but control, a reshaping of the galaxy under their quiet watch. He was to serve as an intermediary, a diplomat between his people and their new overseers. It was mercy, but also mastery. And Saraxis, weary though he was, accepted. Not for himself, but for the chance his people might endure under this new order. That night, alone on the bridge, he replayed the human message in his mind. We never wanted war. But now it seemed war wanted them. And once awakened, they did not stop. He closed his eyes and whispered, almost with reverence, "The galaxy will never forget you." Beyond the glass, the human fleet moved on, silent as predators, efficient as inevitability. And with them went the future, dragging the Empire into a new age it had never believed possible. The stars themselves seemed to bow, and for the first time in centuries, Admiral Saraxis understood fear and respect in equal measure.